Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got the Ruger 5.7 or Ruger 57 or 57 depending on how you want to say it. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. And I've heard it said a bunch of different ways. On here it looks like a 57. On the website they have the decimal point. But basically it's the only gun that Ruger offers in the 5.7 by 28 caliber, which Ruger has joined FN and PSA, Palmetto State Armory, in offering a 5.7 by 28 chambered gun. This gun is a little bit larger because all of the 5.7 guns are. It's a little mini rifle cartridge. It's a small, thin, light cartridge, but it of course does require a little bit bigger grip and a little bit bigger gun to operate it. It's 8.65 inches front to back. It's 5.6 inches tall with a flush magazine in it, and it's 1.2 inches thick if you look at just the slide. It comes out to 1.26 if you count the controls that would be, let's say, in front of a holster. And if you go out to the very widest point, these thumb safeties, it goes out to 1.55. Now there is a version of this they call the Pro version that's available without the thumb safeties, but that'd be up to you. Like Ruger is typical, they incorporate all of the various safeties. They did leave one off, and I'm glad they left it off. They left off the hideous magazine disconnect. So this doesn't have the magazine disconnect, but it's got all the internal drop safeties that you would expect. Inertial toggle on the trigger, hammer block, lightened firing pin, springs optimized. So generally when you get a Ruger, you're getting all of the safeties that are available. Then it's up to you whether you opt for the version with or without the thumb safety. What I did find with the thumb safety is it operated easily. Operated very easily with a thumb. You can get to it. It is ambi, so you have one on the other side. And when it's in the fire position, which would be the furthest down, which would be closest to your hand, it still doesn't really touch your hand. So I didn't have any problem with the safety on the other side biting into me. A lot of guns with ambi safeties, they're annoying for both people, both lefties and righting, because whichever way you're holding it, the other side is biting into your hand. That's not true of this. And the safety works very smoothly. It's very positive and nice locking detent, so you know when you've engaged it or disengaged it and it's going to stay there. But it's no struggle to flip it. So if you had this in a holster and you left it with the safety on and you wanted to draw it and flip the safety off, very easy to do. The sights on this, I don't like blackout rear sights, but what I did find with this one is the gap is wide enough that I could pick up enough of the target that I found this sight's actually quite easy to use. That green fiber optic up front is easy to pick up. And with that bit of gap that you find between the front sight and the rear sight, I could pick up enough of the target. I had no trouble using that sight. Now, there is the concept that there's plates available. In fact, I've actually got one that thread into these two screws and make this an optics ready gun. And you can also see, well, I've got it turned this way, the rear sight is adjustable, windage and height adjustable. So it does come with a very nice sight package. The sights are interchangeable. You could replace the sights if you chose to, but more likely what you would do is buy that little optic plate and put an optic on it if you didn't like the sights. And unfortunately you do have to buy the plate. It does come with a little card with the gun that gets you, I think it's a 20% discount on the sight, so you can use that when you're buying the optics plate, and you buy the plate for the optic that you're going to want to put on there, and you're good to go. It has a 5-slot Picatinny rail, front and rear serrations, very easy to use. The slide on this operates well, but it does kind of have a little bit of a, it's not super smooth. I'm going to eject the mag to make it easier to cycle it. But you can hear at various points that it's scratchy and various points where it kind of stacks and hangs up. It did function perfectly. So from a function perspective, it worked well. It's just not quite as refined feeling as some of the others. It's got a lightning cut here that lightens the slide up, which theoretically would improve reliability. I did find it worked with everything. I did find that the 40 grain ammo tended to kind of stabilize a little bit better. You pulled tighter groups with the 40 grain. Both of the 27 grains worked, and they stabilized enough to be accurate, but I could tell they would probably start to spread at longer distances. So if you're going to shoot at longer distances, you would want to probably stick with the 40 grain. Takedown on this, when I get to it's a little bit clunky, so I got to give it a negative on the takedown. But everything else on this just worked like it was supposed to. The only other control that's worth looking at is the magazine release and the ability to drop the mag. It works well. It doesn't completely drop free, but it comes out enough easy to get a hold of. But just the shape of it, at least with my hand, it's a little more cumbersome to get to it. I have to change my grip a little bit to get to it. But when I do, it works well. And the magazine is easy to get a hold of. It comes out far enough to grab it, but it's not a true drop free. So as far as trying to do very fast technical mag releases or mag changes, it's a little more cumbersome in this, but not bad. And the control itself does function correctly. The slide stop slide release is easy to get to, worked well. So fundamentally, functionally, this thing worked, and I had no stoppages or any other issues with it in any of the various ammos that we tried. And being a blowback gun, which the 5.7 is a blowback design, they tend to be picky about velocity and bullet weight. So this went from very high velocity 27 grain, a little bit slower 27 grain, and even slower 40 grain, and functions perfectly reliably, which is, reliability is probably the most important aspect. Easy to use, sights are reasonable, and the quality on it seems to be pretty good. The MSRP on this is $869. So it comes in definitely less expensive than the FN that really kind of owned the market for the longest time. But it is still an expensive gun. And this one is hammer fired. You can see the internal hammer at the back. So the trigger on this, let's talk about the trigger. Decent amount of take up, but not bad. The inertial toggle disappears quickly. A very smooth, if not a little bit long break, but there's no creep or stacking. So a lot of times if you've got a long break, you might call it creep. This isn't. It's smooth the whole way. Now reset on this is all the way out, but it's a short overall travel to begin with, so it ends up being a decent reset even though it's all the way out. And again, that kind of longish break, but it's really smooth and light, and then it crisply breaks at the end. So I did like the trigger. A lot of times, if you've got a longish break, you can have inconsistencies throughout the pull of the brake, and that can kind of ruin it. This one is just smooth and consistent the whole way through. And as far as the reset, there was all the way out. So the reset is not spectacularly short, other than the fact that the trigger pull itself is short, which ends up giving it a really decent reset. Found that the trigger was easy to use, it was easy to stay on target, and overall, just easy to live with and a lot of fun to shoot. You get a fireball every time you pull the trigger, and it's a very loud round. The round itself generates the fireballs and is relatively loud. The 4.94 inch barrel is alloy steel nitrided. The slide is hardened billet steel and nitrided, and the gun with an empty mag weighs 24.5 ounces, so it's fairly light for a gun this size. Yet with that 5.7 cartridge, it has little or no noticeable recoil. So let's get to the one part of this that I don't like, which is the design of the takedown. So to take it down, you need to push this with a tool. Now that tool could be this channel cleaning tool, which I tend to use whenever I need to push something like this. Could also be the heel of a magazine. Could be pretty much anything. I would avoid anything metal because it's going to just kind of scratch things up. But you kind of pull the slide back a little bit, push on this to get it to come out. Then once it's out, you can turn it down and then separate the two halves. I don't like the fact that you have to use a tool, but the rest of it comes apart like a 5.7. So once you've released that, the two halves come apart, you kind of just move it forward a little bit and pop it off. All of the 5.7 designs that I've worked with, the slide just moves forward to clear the guides and pops up and off. None of them go back together like a Glock where you line up the back and slide it forward. So you have your rails at the front, your rails at the back, your hammer, because again this is an internal hammer gun. And other than that, there's not a whole lot going on. They're fairly simple and straightforward. When I move to the slide, so you have this captive guide rod. So it's a one-piece captive guide rod. The barrel. It's kind of a thin body of the barrel, but of course there's not, it's a small round to begin with. And the barrel does appear to be well manufactured and well machined. Nice crisp rifling. It is conventional rifling. And this has basically this whole thing is the feed ramp. So this whole circle's the feed ramp. But like the 5.7, the magazine presents the round almost to go straight in. So the feed ramp really, it doesn't play a huge part of it. It more is of a guide. The round will be probably halfway in there before any part of it actually touches the feed ramp and it finishes guiding it in. And this is a delayed blowback design. On the slide itself, very well machined, very well done. Of course, back here, instead of having a mechanism for a striker, you've got a clearance for the hammer to hit the firing pin. But overall well done, and there you can see the lightening notch to lighten up the slide. Now putting it back together is actually a little easier than taking it apart. Slide the barrel into place. Getting it just into the right spot. Put the guide rod back in. It's easier to do when you're just doing it where you're looking at it, not trying to do it on camera. And then what you end up doing is lining it up just about right. You'll see that it kind of mates and goes together, and then you pull back. Then you can pull back a little bit and slide this up. And you do sometimes have to play with the positioning of it a little bit to get it where you can slide this back. If this doesn't slide in correctly, then recenter it and try again. There it goes. Oh, yeah, that's correct. Once you get it in the correct position, just push it back into place. So again, the takedown is a little clunky. It's not hideous, but it's a little clunky. At least from a tool perspective, anything that can push. So at least you don't have to worry about having a specific wrench or something with you. Overall, I liked it. Overall, it ran quite well. The only negative I did see is, unlike any other 5.7 I've worked with, it did crimp the ejected round. So if you're a reloader, that would be significant. Otherwise, it didn't present any function issue. Overall, I liked the gun. I think it's a good gun at the price, and is, of course, less expensive than the FN. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up. Share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Getter. We're kind of everywhere. And thank you.
Hard to load with your hand, but it takes forever. Especially if you're loading at 10 or 12 right here. And it'll load. You know that it's ready to fire because the hammer's okay?